Before I went to university, I told you I liked drama. We used drama. So we had progressive teachers, and I don't know how they managed it, but we had this non-racial theatre group, and we rehearsed, I remember, at the UCT Union, and we had all these plays which we workshopped, with reference to what's happening in the country, but very indirectly. And we'd go and do these plays at old age homes, and I remember St. Joseph's Children's Home So our political activism was actually through theatre initially. And which I continued as a teacher, and that continued as a teacher because I started a drama group at the school, and we had the Shakespeare was Merchant of Venice, so of course it was very good to look at economics in Merchant of Venice, and prejudice, Jews, etc. And then also the Threepenny Opera, Brecht. Brecht was a socialist, using that whole thing about poverty, etc. So yes, we used theatre as young activists. For us also, I must say, it was very unusual, because here you are now with young people from all races. But what's also very interesting is learning more about politics. I didn't know in the 1950s. Do you know that because, I think you probably will in your work, whites got all the education free. So-called coloureds got some books free, but so-called Africans got nothing free, which meant that the majority of Africans, because of socioeconomic conditions, couldn't actually have a full schooling. Many left early. But the role of night schools was very important. So many Africans went to night schools. But as to the apartheid legislation, then the night schools for Africans were closed. And I remember this woman called Anne in our group, and there was Nancy Blyke. He said, "You know what? Nancy's playing coloured. So now she's going to Chrissy Night School." And that was the first time I realized that the night schools for so-called Africans was being closed. And then also learning how people, because of circumstances, the Globus became Olifant. And so in other words, the whole thing of playing, reclassifying to the other race group for more facilities.
Okay, tell us about you were very involved in setting up women's organizations. Why did you do that? Why were you so instrumental in setting up those organizations, and what were the issues around those days?
The reason why I became acutely aware of women's issues, not in my family, but I did become aware of violence against women. I remember in my church, a woman went to complain that her husband on the church council was beating her, and the church council did nothing about it. And I was 7, and I thought, but now how come? And I still remember this woman's look on her face, that this man is on the church council, he's beating her, and the church council does nothing about it. So violence against women I was very acutely aware of. And I don't know how you would find it as a younger woman, but can you imagine going to a party and you stand there and you have to wait for a boy to take you to dance? I mean, like, really. So they were just things that we as young girls, women, couldn't do. It was more important how we looked, as opposed to what we were saying. I mean, whether the teachers, it was so subtle. But I also want to reiterate the fact of salaries. And I know all people that went to work and had different salaries. When I became a teacher, I had very little salary compared to my male compatriots. But interesting enough too, you remember I did drama at school? Drama at university. So when I went to teach at Kensington High, there were 3 others from UCT who also did drama, and they earned more than us. So there was the race thing, and the male thing. And all the heads of department, the principals, and when I went to teach at Hewitt, they instituted this new thing of senior lectures. The rector gave all the application forms to the men only, and one woman who was like your apple of his eye. So, of course, if you're confronted with all of these things, surely there's something wrong with being a woman. What I also want to emphasize, and I don't have enough time, man, or energy, but I really want to challenge the Dutch Reformed Church, because they now claim they have a gender desk. Well, firstly, when I was teaching at Kensington, I remember we had the big boycotts of 1976, and our students were going to march to Cape Town. And I even said to my girlfriends, the very drama teachers who earn more than me, I think we should do something about it. So that was the first thing we did, was speaking around politics. I also remember Lynn Matthews, who was married to Trevor Manuel, talking about SACCOS. So suddenly, the SACCOS was only launched in 1983, but talking about the facilities for blacks in terms of sports. And I was more on the women's issues. So lots of women's groups, also in church, my closest friends, and at university, my closest friends. And I think as much as UCT made the first year was very alienating and lonely, I also managed to get some good friends there. And reading like a play of Ibsen's The Dollhouse. So it was both my personal experience as a girl, and my brother and my cousins and my father and all his brothers. I was silenced. Yeah, even the way the teachers sometimes spoke to us. But it was, as I say, it was ambivalent, because on the one hand, we were the clever ones, I formed the Drama Society and Debating Society, and I even had a film society, and it was terrible because we had this black paper we had to pin up, and the black paper kept on coming down, and so it was using society and education, and also deliberately choosing texts. So it was both using the newspapers of 1976 and showing subjective language, objective language as regard to what was happening in the country in terms of race, but also in terms of women. And then having a play like The Merchant of Venice with this wonderful Portia, So it was out of the prescribed things imposed on you as education. But the saddest thing for me was our entire leadership was male. Not only were they male, but it's almost like politicians today.
I mean, I'm just, you're reminiscing now, you're reflecting, and you're very charismatic. But back then, were you an angry fighter? Were you always so pleasant, or?
Well, I was defiant.
Okay, go ahead.
I need to tell you that I may not have got my degree from UWC because I went to UCT, but I was the first woman at UWC to wear a trousers at campus. We were not allowed to wear trousers. And for some reason, one Friday morning, I was late, and I thought, I'm just putting on what's on the chair, and it just happened to be trousers, and I just thought, damn it, and I put it on. And so, of course, I came late to class, and there we were in the largest theatre at that time was A100, Psychology 1, hundreds and hundreds of students, but the entrance is in front, and the lecture is in front, and you have this rows going up. And of course, Gertrude traipses in with the trousers. And Professor Kaliyerse, stops in the middle of his lecture and stares at me. And I just hear, "Zet die broek aan, zet die broek aan, zet die broek aan." And Gertrude just marched up nonchalantly to find a seat. But let me tell you, the Monday thereafter, there were 3 other girls with trousers. And thereafter, they just wore trousers. It's there. And we worked, the Freedom Charter, the wealth shall belong to those who work it. The land shall belong to those who work it. We sang it in Mildred, forward we shall march, forward we shall march, forward we shall march to the people's government. Then we would say, forward, forward. That was our life.